Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on the video, and yeah, you read correctly. We are going to put a 2-inch lift on the back of this Nissan D21 for 60 bucks. And we are going to do that with the Pro Comp Add-A-Leaf, which we picked up just a little while ago. If you watched my previous video, you will see that we installed a Class 3 Curt hitch to replace the old hitch on the back of this truck, but with the amount of weight that was put on the back of it, the leaf springs were flattened out and the shackles were almost completely flexed to the max. So these Pro Comp Add-A-Leafs are going to hopefully resolve that issue, and you will see the results at the end of this video. But yeah, I mean, that's the purpose of our install today. You can see that we have the tires off of the back of the vehicle. We have everything lifted up. This process is relatively simple, but it does involve removing the rear axle completely from the vehicle. So full disclaimer, this is a representation of what me and Noah did during this project. If you want to see more projects like this, you can subscribe to the channel or check out Noah's channel at The Driver's Market. But this is a representation, not a demonstration of what you should do. So if you want to undertake a project like this yourself, please do so at your own discretion. You will be removing the rear axle of your vehicle completely and having to put it back on, so please be careful. Something to note, the front of the leaf spring, at least measured from the center, is about 13 3/4 inches, and the rear of the leaf spring, measured from the center, is 15 1/4 inches. When you are getting to the point of putting on the leaf springs, make sure that they are configured correctly with the long side of the leaf spring angled towards the rear of the vehicle. Before we separate the axle from the frame of the vehicle, we need to remove the brake lines, the brake booster, and the rear emergency brake cable. We will get that out of the way first, and then we will focus on the U-bolts that secure the axle to the leaf springs. We will also need to remove the bottom bolts to the shocks so that the shocks are not attached to the axle either. Now we can get started removing the 4 bolts that secure the U-bolts to that bottom plate right there. We will use a breaker bar to obviously break tension initially on this, and then we can move forward with the zip gun and get those bolts off pretty cleanly. After I took the nuts off of the U-bolts, I noticed that there were a couple of lock washers that had been pretty mangled and were even sticking to the top of the plate. So I had to get those off whatever way possible, and luckily we had a few spare lock washers sitting around, but that was not hardware that came with the Add-A-Leaf kit, obviously. So keep that in mind if you have a couple 100,000 miles on your truck. After we got the leaf springs separated from the axle, we took this floor jack and supported the rear differential and the drive shaft and got ready with another lift to get full separation from the frame of the vehicle and the axle. Perfect.
Okay. Shall we try again?
We shall try. Yep.
Looks like we're separated?
Looks like we're separated.
Okay.
Once we got to the leaf springs themselves, the goal was to just zip off the center bolt that was securing all the leaf springs together. In our case, the center bolt didn't want to come off, so we ended up just cutting them with an angle grinder. The Pro Comp leaf springs come with additional hardware, an additional center bolt that is has more than enough length for probably whatever vehicle you're using. It was definitely more than enough for the Nissan D21, so we weren't too concerned about throwing the old center bolts away. Now that we have that out of the way, we can get to the installation of the Pro Comp Add-A-Leaf themselves. In order to do that, we lined everything up flush with each other and tensioned the leaf spring and the add-a-leafs together with these clamps. We put the center bolt through and tightened them down until the center bolt could keep tension on the leaf spring and the add-a-leaf set without the help of the clamps. Then we cut the top of the center bolt off just enough so that the bumper could rest flush on top of it in the original configuration that it came in. We repeated this process on the other side, and at this point it's time to lower the vehicle back down onto the rear axle and put everything back together again. We double and triple checked to make sure everything was aligned properly, and then lowered the frame down so that it was resting under its own weight on top of the axle.
Come down all the way.
Sure.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. That's it. That's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote.
We put the U-bolts and the plate back on and secured them with the nuts and the new lock washers. We made sure that they were tight by using the breaker bar. Then we put the brake lines, the brake booster, and the rear emergency brake cable back in the place they originally were. And here we are actually testing that rear emergency brake cable while putting the tire back on, and we can see that there is no play. So easy peasy. Finally, tightening down the rear bolt, securing the shocks on both sides of the vehicle, and the project is done. I've added a clip from the last video showing just how sagged the Nissan was with the bike carrier and the bike without the add-a-leaf. And here are some photos of the vehicle now, both with and without the bike carrier. Thank you very much. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.